And so part of that is developing a mission statement that will carry through beyond our tenure. And then also really thinking about committee work groups and what those look like and what they can look like beyond 2025. So I just really want to have a discussion and start piecing these things together. And then maybe we had decided also in 2025 that we would meet more frequently as well, so that we can be a bit more engaged with some of our goals as an advisory board.
Chairperson Raby,
Sure.
if we can, before the committee dives into the task at hand, the board office would like to just create some, I don't want to say create some parameters, but just kind of create an envelope that we think would be helpful in terms of how you approach this particular task and the planning process. And I would like to ask the Chief of Staff to our Chairman, April Morgan, if she could just share her perspectives as it relates to where the long and the short of kind of what CAB can do and how they can approach this work.
Okay, thank you.
Morgan, Chief of Staff Chairman, just want to set a context to, give you guys some things to think about as you're working through this session. So the purpose of the Citizens Advisory Board, of course, is advisory in nature. It's in the name. But it's there. I think I see it as two components. There, you represent our constituency, our ridership. So you are representative of those interests and concerns, and you bring them to this body. But then there's an advisory component that should provide some advice and counsel to the board with respect to its policies around ridership and service. And so as you're having these discussions around what the Citizens Advisory Board wants to do in the next year, what you want to achieve through your committee work, what you want to achieve in your general sessions. I would say look at your goals from the community and representation standpoint, and then also the advisory standpoint. As you know, Chairperson Raby and Vice Chair Johnson, they regularly report quarterly to the board. A question the board regularly asks is, well, what are you tasked with? What do you have that you can advise us on? So the board is interested in that. So as you're kind of setting out those goals and thinking about what you can do, I would encourage you to look at it through the lens of how can we engage the community, get as much input as we can, since we represent the ridership, and then how can we use that to provide some sound advice to the board as it shapes its policies. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for that framing. And we definitely recognize the importance of our role to support and give advice from the lens of the ridership to the board. And we're happy that we're able to add that component so that, ridership representation is really permeating through the work that's being done here at CTA. So with that said, I guess we can start with developing a mission statement. If that's okay with everyone, if everyone is fine with moving forward with actually developing a mission statement that will help give us guidance as we provide guidance to the leadership here. So mission statements are something that, it gives guidance to whatever the group is. And it's not necessarily meant to change. It's something that's supposed to be, kind of like everlasting and really something that is given the essence of what that particular group is all about. different from our time and move into the future of what CTA, what riders would like to see CTA be. So we need to think about it from that standpoint. So what I would like to do for this type of exercise is really kind of like start with a kind of like a word cloud and start like generating some thoughts around what types of words we would like to see in a statement like that, and then narrow it down from there. If anybody has ever done mission statement development, please feel free to chime in as well on, the best way to achieve this goal for today. But I know this is one way that I've done it in the past that worked well. Oh, Ms. Greenlee, you're on point. I love it. Yes, this is fantastic. So
And actually, well, also, some of you did turn in your surveys. I think an easel is coming. With your ideas about the mission statement, so you're gonna take and pass it down, but there were some words that were submitted by a few CAB members who completed it.
The mission statement needs to be a broad focus for us. It needs to communicate our values and our broad objective. And when I say broad objective, it means extremely broad. We don't need to jump like an exacting detail. Those can come and be developed at some other point in time, but just a broad value of what we think each, and that we can come back to all the time to remind us of what our real objective is, because focused on our direction.
Yes, 100%. And I think to your point about the specific, those come out in other ways, not necessarily in the mission statement, but like in, goals, initiatives, other very specific, trying to find the right word. But yes, I agree. We don't need to get into too much nitty gritty. We need to keep it open in the way that will allow for it to last over time. And if we start getting too specific, then that could cause issues down the road. Like we add things like about technology that exists today that won't necessarily exist in 30 years. That could be. So anyway, fabulous. So let's go ahead and review some of the words that were shared. Some of the ideas.
So solutions oriented.
So we had a solutions oriented and accountability, rider focus, holding CTA leadership accountable, growing the CTA system, community engagement, to serve as the voice of customer stakeholders to the CTA, communication of CTA initiative back to our constituencies, to help shape the medium long-term vision of the CTA, serve all, represent, adapt, future, convenience, dedication, advocacy, collaboration. So those are some of the ideas for a mission statement that came out of the survey. So in addition to these ideas that came out, were there any other thoughts that we may have that we want to capture?
Before moving forward, I think the committee working groups should be the main focus of today. And you'll see that kind of outlined in my CAB short-term goal response. Can we time box the development of this mission statement?
Okay.
I want to make sure we stay focused on deliverables. And I think delivering committee goals and objectives is going to be a better use of our time than mission statement word clouds.
Oh, okay. Well, we can do that. How about I put like 15 minutes on a timer? Just so that we can at least get some of these thoughts out. And then we can review that. And then I can take those words and work with Rob and Georgette to kind of like come up with a preliminary or draft statement, circulate it around and see if that statement resonates with the rest of it. And then we can move forward with that and focus today on developing the committees and really kind of putting our energies there. That's fine with me, if that's fine with everyone else. Okay, so I'll put a 15-minute timer on starting now. Oh, any other thoughts on the mission statement? Any other key terms or words or anything that resonates with you all that we should add to it or just consider?
The way I kind of thought about what our mission is kind of translating what we hear from riders into concrete proposals that we can present to the board. So I kind of think of us as maybe like a funnel, like taking broad concerns, feedback, ideas, and translating them into, concrete proposals or feedback that's articulated in a way that's, clear and like progress to be measured for.
I kind of have like a draft mission statement. Is it okay to share?
Sure, absolutely.
Port Transit Authority Citizens Advisory Board is a rider-focused, solutions-oriented body dedicated to serving as a voice of customer stakeholders in the broader community. Through advocacy, collaboration, and accountability, we work to ensure that CTA leadership delivers a system that is adaptable, convenient, and equitable for all. Committed to growing the CTA system, we prioritize community engagement and innovative solutions to meet the evolving needs of riders, representing and serving every member of our diverse city with dedication and purpose for a better transit future.
Wow. It's very,
Again.
I actually love that.
it's really great.
Really good.
Too long.
The only thing I would say is it's lengthy. So if we can like take that same energy and those, that the essence of that and condense it, it would be spot on. Like that really sounds really good.
I have a much shorter one. Between the two, I think you can come up with a simple, focused one-sentence statement. And mine goes something like this: to provide for policy and innovation which supports ridership in a responsible and accountable way. And so someplace between those two, I think you can find everything that are our values, because it's our values that we want to communicate. And that's what you got a couple of community values, but the values are what.
Yeah, those both sound really great. Could you share those with Georgette so that we can? Yeah.
Greenlee@transchicago.com.
Yeah, and then we'll.
Anybody want a copy of them now? Anybody also on a mission statement, wordsmithing mission?
So I actually think that if those two are like so well, like, I love them both. So if everybody else is okay with us taking both of those statements and combining them and kind of creating one that's a bit more shortened and to the point, then maybe that's something we can represent to you guys if you're okay with moving on from this particular part of the agenda. Okay, cool. That's, man, y'all made it easy. So revisit those and send them out for your edits and critique, and then at the next meeting, we'll vote on making that a permanent mission statement for this group. Okay, so working committees. We have determined that we would have three. The Safety and Security Committee, Ridership Committee, and Innovation Committee. I just wanna
We got an updated agenda report.
oh, so sorry. Thank you. I was looking up there. Document. I knew something was going on. I'm like, this one seems shorter. Anyway, so we have, and then we have the Transit Funding Committee. Just a pulse test on everybody. Do these committees sound pretty solid? Like these are the areas that we, as a advisory board, want to make sure that we are putting our energies towards.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd agree.
Cool. All right. I just wanted to make sure. So great. So let us kind of dive into each of them so that we can determine what goals and objectives we would want to have for each. And then from there, we'll kind of like solidify what those are and circulate that back out to the group. Like, I think we want to really just get the ideas out, make sure that we get everyone's thoughts. And then we can tighten it up. Okay.
Had one thought for an additional work, community engagement. There's like a lot of events that the city offers, like back to school events, the Bud Billiken. And I feel like CTA can just have a stronger presence. So would that be a consideration at a engagement working group?
I think so. Actually, that's something we had kind of talked about before, just like, what is the CAB's involvement in general with community engagement? And I know I've been invited to a variety of different things, Red Line Extension, the Damon stop, like things like that. But I'm wondering, like, what is like all of ours? Like, and I know Georgia has also done a lot to connect with the community engagement team to try to get more information in advance so that we know what's coming up. And I know that there's been some challenges with getting some of that information about dates on it, then. So if there's, I think for sure having a committee on our board that can be dedicated to that and maybe even be put in direct contact with those that are leading community engagement, I think that might be a good way to do that, to kind of like lessen the game of telephone that we're playing so we can get the direct information. I know there's been like challenges with connecting with some folks, or at least getting the information.
Right, I'll do. Not technically staff, I am staff. Each division has a community division, right?
Mhm.
So, for example, Red Line Extension has a whole community engagement office,
Mhm.
and their focus is primarily Roseland and. But then diversity, the diversity team, which is working on contracts and suppliers, minority suppliers, and making sure that the workforce is diverse, that is being hired, has a ton of events too, separate and apart from whatever RLE may be doing just to engage community around a zoning issue or something like that.
Mhm.
And that's just the key. I think the issue is CTA is always out in the community in various divisions, and that has been, it's like an elephant of community events. That's what's really going on.
Is there like some kind of like centralized space where all of the community divisions, like all of those community groups from the divisions have some type of connection to each other?
Not necessarily. They do sometimes overlap.
Mhm.
So for example, if you see CTA at the marathon, right? Because we had a big community bus at the marathon. We were at the marathon. We had a cooling bus at the marathon. That came out of marketing. So marketing will pick these many events that we're gonna do this year. We're gonna do the marathon, we're gonna do the Cinco de Mayo parade, we're going to do Blood Billiken.
Mhm.
We're going to do, we're gonna have two games at the White Sox, a game at the Cub, whatever.
Right.
But that's where that is coming from. That's who had decided that. But while they are simultaneously deciding that, Bill Mooney's division, which has the art installations
Mhm.
team, may be having community meetings in Rogers Park because they're talking with an artist and there's a Rogers Park committee that is deciding which artists they want to have put some new art in whatever in that community. Which is another technically community meeting. right?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's like there are things happening all the time. And while those two things are happening over at Malcolm X College, Juan Pablo Prieto's team and Denise Beretta are doing a big ginormous diversity.
The fair that they
Oh,
did a couple
right.
of weeks ago. Yeah, yeah.
So have the marathon people talk with the diversity people, talk with the art people? No, not necessarily. It's all
Gotcha.
that under one thing, no.
Mm.
They're all moving through what is their mission.
Right.
So that they are engaging community for the purposes of making sure that what is happening reflects what the community, depending on which area of Chicago wants, or all of Chicago, if that's the case. But it's just different tracks.
No, I get it. It is a lot going on.
Or that's what I've learned. I don't know. Should I be, April, would you like to weigh in?
I think that's pretty accurate.
Okay.
We're a large agency, a lot of departments, and there's a community engagement component to each one, as Georgette described. I think a lot of those community events, at some point, those departments are communicating with our comms team to kind of push it out. So I can say that informally, all of those things are being pushed out broadly through comms. But that's still not like, comms isn't the centralized place where all of that is getting out. But we're definitely pushing out those individual community outreaches, utilizing our department. The department might have its own communications or marketing around it, but then CTA as an agency pushing out constant press release for your website, your social media, those things.
So how does the main board?
So the board specifically, for example, really wants to know about diversity hiring events.
Mhm.
So
So they ask about specific divisions that they want to get that information?
right, well, there are some of the bigger events, they like the O'Hare Extension grand opening.
Mhm.
There may be a request from the president's office to the board to please attend that because it's just a bigger event. And there will be other folks who will be there, leaders from the Chicago or from the region. Or from other transit authorities, RTA, Pace Metro.
Mhm.
Sometimes, and then there are some members of the board who say, every time it's an event like this, I want to know. If there's an event in Pilsen, I want to know that there's something happening in Pilsen. Or if it's an event where you're engaging the large segment of the Hispanic community and it's aimed at them and it's something that's resonates with us, I want to know that that's happening.
Mhm.
And so it just depends, I guess, on the various boards members and what their
Is it possible for us to-
what they're representing.
Is it possible for, I'm sorry, Tracy.
Oh, no, you go say
I
it.
was just gonna ask, is it possible for us to make that same type of a request?
Yeah.
Like, just to be able to be put in, like, as a regular, like, a group of notified people about like these, like,
Sure.
things, because I feel like it's important for the CAB ongoing, like, to always be invited to as representatives of riders. We should just be invited, even if we can't make it, the invitation should be there.
And a lot of the time, I feel like when I do get those notifications, it's on like really short notice. Like if I get something the day before, like I may not be able to like take off of work. Whereas if I hear about something and it's happening like, a couple of weeks from now, like it's a lot easier for me to request time off and be able to participate in that.
Agree.
Tracy?
Yeah, no, I guess for me, I'm trying to get a little bit more clarity and really around our purpose as a citizen advisory board. Maybe from the main board, and I don't know, maybe April can help us with this. Obviously, it appears that PTA does a lot of already community outreach and from different aspects. What exactly would be expected from us if in fact you're doing all this stuff and we in a sense represent our own individual constituencies, right? Like, and everybody's got groups and people that they talk to, report to, get information to, you know, how can we be more effective in this whole kind of setup? Like, you know, like, I mean, like literally, if I see CTAs doing a lot of outreach, I'm trying to figure out like, okay, well, they should be getting feedback. It should be a feedback thing. If you're doing outreach in a community, then you find out community needs. If you're doing a community meeting, talking about the extension, red line extension, you're hearing from the community.
Mhm.
Where do we fit into that? I'm just asking that question, really, because I'm trying to figure it out, like.
I think that what we're looking for is a solution to how we deal with community engagement. Is what I'm hearing. And community engagement probably, from my perspective, should be a part of every one of our individual committees. So that perhaps if we're a part of the innovation committee, we make that innovation committee a part of their charge is to make sure that they understand what the community engagement is within the innovation of the CTA. And then we come back to us as a group and communicate that from time to time, even though we may also still have a master list of events that are coming to us. It allows each one of the committees to focus on the individual activities that relate to that individual committee, which we consider important to us.
But I'm following, but I'm also wondering, like, you know, if we were to kind of like focus on engagement as it pertains to each of these different subject matters, like, I don't see,
I also think,
events lining up with some of these in that way.
That's correct, because we've said to ourselves, our focus are these committees, are these areas. We're not addressing everything in the CTA, we're addressing these areas. And so within those areas, we address understanding the community engagement, but not community engagement across the entire CTA, because that's not our focus. Our focus is a smaller focus.
I also think maybe this discussion is a good thing for a community engagement committee. Like maybe that's what the committee decides. What is our role? How do we go about it?
And that's a possibility as well.
So can I can do an example. Let's say we are concerned with safety on CTA as a body. And we say, oh, you know, I've heard from people, some of my workers, that it's not very safe. And then we come back to the meetings and we talk in our safety committee. CTA needs to be more safe for our riders. Now, I think CTA kind of has a lot of data on stuff. So I'm like saying, are we being repetitive? I mean, do we really have purpose when we're like bringing things that I think CTA already knows? That there's safety. We know people are concerned with safety. We're concerned with safety. Like, I'm trying to figure out what our dynamics are with the board and with CTA as an organization. Like, are we going back out to our constituents, having meetings, saying we've talked to CTA and they said things are going to be better on the green line, the red line? We're not. Are we doing that? I mean, like, what's our purpose? Really, I'm just asking a basic question. I mean.
I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear you. Would you go to? Oh, yes. Hi, right. The legal side.
That's a great question. And I think structurally, you've been established and statutorily be an advisory board, an advisory committee to the board. And the communication flows that way. And while you may obtain a bunch of the helpful information from the community, from your own ideas, they don't go back and speaking on behalf of the board, on behalf of the CTA to the community. I don't know if you feel differently about it, but that's my read.
Yeah, because then that is another level of like accountability or not the accountability is not the word, liability, because we are not the agent,
Exactly.
right? So like we can't speak on behalf of the agency, be speaking as individual citizens.
And the advisory,
The member of the advisory board, which is,
yeah, discuss your functions.
yeah,
Members of the community may well have additional suggestions how you can be engaged and how you can chat. That could be very helpful.
Yeah, maybe you would be at a CATS meeting, or maybe you would be at, isn't there this new thing that's divided up now under this, the CPD where
Yeah.
each community has an elected
This
body?
could be a police.
We've been getting invitations for, you know, they haven't yet come to one of our board meetings.
Mhm.
CPD has come to our board meetings, but
another,
they are starting to have community meetings.
Right.
And so that, you know, that may be a place where there is some intersectionality.
yeah,
Not that you would go and be like, we're representing CTA, but if you're there, you're able to listen
mhm,
and come back and say, you know, well, this is what we've heard to the district, whatever. You know,
Yeah.
the Ravenswood district's meeting, the Inglewood district's meeting.
So, sorry to interrupt. I just-
No, thank you.
no, you're fine, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the beauty of this board is that we do bring a variety of perspectives, in ways that I think that the main board cannot. And I think that we need to really own that. And, I think that we need to determine, maybe to your point, Tracy, about like, what is our role? Maybe we do need to figure out a way that we can be in the space with the main board in some kind of way beyond like the public, like the larger public meeting, maybe. I mean, I know obviously we would have to, it would probably trigger the public, it would be. We're doing this right. But like, you know, just really trying to figure out what that looks like though. Like, I mean, if it's not part of the regularly scheduled public meetings, like what does it mean for CAB and the main board?
Yeah.
To be able to be in communication with one another. Like we have not had that opportunity beyond CAB reporting out at the main board meeting. And even then, it's kind of like a one-way thing, even though they may have some remarks or questions. It's really just us reporting to them, and it's not a conversation, it's not a dialogue. So how do we set the scene for that to happen? I don't know if that is something that could address the concern that you brought up, but it could be a start.
No, I really like this conversation. I think at the end of the day, the biggest impact of this advisory board has always been the reports we make to the board. I think they should be less public comments, which already exist, and more conversations. Hey, these are what our people are saying, you know, and we're here to kind of maybe not speak truth to power, but like start a more truthful conversation, because we are here to talk about the issues. And so I think what I'm hearing maybe is, would these committees have their own leaders, and would these committee leaders be able to speak to the board themselves? That way we have a more focused conversation with the board. And frankly, I think I would need some convincing on my time being spent in private meetings with the board. I see these public conversations as the only ones with accountability. That's one of the most frequent words we had.
Yeah,
I
so
agree.
just for clarification, the board does not even have private meetings with the board.
No,
The board meets in public. They don't go off anywhere by themselves and meet, not for dinner, not for breakfast, not for any reason.
makes sense.
The only time you may see them leave in private is because they're going into executive session in the middle of the public meeting, after which they come out. So there are really strict guidelines, even if they are meeting, getting ready for a meeting. There is a maximum number of them that can be in the meeting together, which is, I think, 2 people. So just to be real clear
Right, right.
on what we can do and what we can't do.
Is there a possibility then for like a joint session?
Mhm. Is it, so it is possible?
There's precedent, there have been joint meetings. I would just to add as a suggestion, I think it's great to think about ways in which you can, there can be CAB representation in these community engagement meetings to get input and feedback from the public and report it back to the board. The other piece that I would just recommend, and this would be on the advisory side, and I think this is what the board is really looking for, are, this is everybody taking that feedback and then advising the board on some recommendations for a solution to the feedback that you're hearing. It's something that the board can take under advisement. It won't necessarily mean that it'll be voted on and put into place that very day. But, we hear a lot of public comment. But what I think what would be very refreshing for the board from this group is, okay, we're hearing this feedback on safety and security. We went to this particular community group, they really want to see trans ambassadors. We went to this group and they really want to see police. We're talking in our Citizens Advisory Board committee, and here are some proposed ideas, just some ideas around perhaps how there could be a pilot for both, or, something along those lines, something that the board can kind of take back, think about, and then, challenge to staff, to management, and say, hey, these are some recommendations. Have you considered these? Are these, things that we can put to policy? I think that's the piece that would be very important work for this board, and that the board would be very appreciative of.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you, April. I think that's exactly what we would love to do. We've kind of murmured about it, but never really knew if that was something we could actually pursue. And so it's helpful coming up with some ideas and solutions for them. Yeah.
And
Right.
So that means it can be addressed, mentioned to the board. The board certainly would take that under review and then, take it to management on whether we turn that into practice and policy. But yes, that's the purpose of this advisory board, to advise the board on recommendations based on feedback from the public.
That's fantastic. So that really helps us to know that moving forward with these committees, we can really do some deep dives. And hopefully we can come up with some ideas that we can share.
Well, and
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
So real quick, I'm just feedback from the community. The question for me is, most of us have very finite kind of community, involvement. Like you obviously don't know everything that's going on everywhere in Chicago. Where are we pulling data from in order to provide feedback to CTA board that they aren't already doing in some sense? Will there be a requirement maybe for us to be at some of these meetings that CTA has, have a representative from a committee so that they can bring back ideas to the full CAB board here and then be able to say, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Maybe we should propose that. I'm saying, where are we getting our data, our information as a group?
It's a good question.
Advisor to CTA.
I think, hold on, one real quick. I think if we are divvying ourselves up into these various committees, then we are essentially committing to focusing on whatever that particular area of interest is. And then whatever meetings occur under that banner, we would see if we can, and of course, we're not getting paid to do this. If you can't go, you can't go. But if you're making the effort, I think that, to at least go to 1 or 2 of these meetings or try to seek out places where people are meeting about these things, or even just in your own experience as a citizen, going to your alderman, your, monthly alderman meeting, like all of these where these topics are likely to arise. I think that at the minimum is what would be expected. And of course, can't do it, you can't do it, but.
I think you should also not negate, what you already bring to the table, separate and apart from seeking out additional forums to visit or conversations to engage in. Not that that would not be amazing. So you're a South Loop business owner, or not just a South Loop business owner, but a small business owner in several communities. That's a perspective. That is a constituency.
Yeah.
You are a transit oriented development business owner. There, we only have so many areas where we have full-fledged transit oriented development at the base of rail stations. That is its own community. We've got Mayor Take Acton individuals on CAB. That is a constituency. We have students on CAB. That there's a reason for that. We have South Florida
developers,
residents on
planners.
CAB, Pilsen residents on CAB, Ravenswood residents on CAB. So there are the perspectives in terms of what you already bring was a part of the application, part of what you put in your application.
Right.
When you said, I want to be on CAB.
And I think we have a really great cross representation across all of the lines, all of the, not all communities, but like a good swath of the city. So we do bring a lot of interesting perspectives. That's when I first started this conversation. I think I mentioned like how great we are in terms of our diversity, what we bring to the table just on our own. So going beyond that to go to a community meeting or anything like that, it's great, but like Georgia said, it's not like, your own experience in this space, I think also is very, valued. So, yeah, sorry.
I think a piece that expands upon what all of you have just said is that we're not looking for empirical data input. We're looking for our own input from our own communities and the people around us, looking for that piece that might be both innovative, unusual, practical, purposeful, that then the CTA as an entity has the capacity to turn it into and to become an empirical solution through their own research and their own more detailed orientation. We're just that sort of that sieve of lots of things, lots of pieces, and there'll be one piece here and one piece there, one piece there that has the potential of having a positive impact on the CTA, which the CTA board can't necessarily address, but we can because we're on the streets living around people.
And I think one other thing to just kind of like add to Herbie's comment is that we are not expected to have this incredibly comprehensive view of everything that is all CTA across the city of Chicago. Like that's impossible. CTA doesn't even have it itself. So to expect that from us, it would be crazy. So we are really we are in our little bubbles. We are, in our own communities. But I think that because we're in a variety of communities, that helps to inform CTA in a way that maybe the data doesn't. It gives them anecdotal data as opposed to, just the raw numbers. Like we need to be able to tell stories. We're the ones that are the heart. We're giving the heart to the data. That's the way I'm looking at it. So,
So it's very interesting. The things that you're saying sounds like things that should be in that mission statement. You know what I'm saying? So really this conversation, I think, is very good because it's given us a new way to really think about who we are and what our purpose is.
Well, and I think the other thing is given that, we only have, 6-7 months left. I kind of view our role as, saying our piece and then providing a framework for the next CAB to build on. what we've
Mhm.
done so far, because, you know, we kind of built from zero. I'm not from zero, but from very little, because there wasn't one for us, immediately before us. And so I think, you know, as we go into talking about all these committees, I think part of it is, you know, saying our piece, saying what we think, but then also providing some framework for the people who come after us, who will provide different, but maybe similar perspectives.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's exactly why we want to develop this structure so that it is, you know, living onward beyond our time. And we want to be as thoughtful and as intentional about this as we can. Okay, this conversation has been really great. I guess now that so community engagement, are we in agreement that we should add a fifth area of focus? Or are we thinking that community engagement, something that covers all areas and should be embedded within? I'm just wanting to kind of like get some clarity on where we are with that.
I would prefer a separate committee.
It sounds good, but do we need a minimum number of people on each committee?
I would think that because we don't want to trigger the Open Meetings Act, it would be easier if we kept it to the minimum so that these committees can meet whenever they need to and not have to set up a public.
I don't think
Exactly.
for that part you would need. Kent? We have, right, we have 10 voting members. Okay, so the number of people who can meet and not trigger the Open Meetings Act is 3.
Okay,
That's to cut across the field on that committee. Does 3 have to be the total number of the committee?
no.
That's what you all have to
Right.
decide that.
And I feel like the committee doesn't have to be limited to 3. I think though, we need to be mindful though about how the committee meets. And if maybe there's there's 3, kind of like, I don't know, the chair, vice chair and something else. I don't know what the right terms are, but and they are the ones that are meeting and then they kind of like share the information out and people are able to like respond via email, something like that. I don't know. You guys have to help me understand the legal parameters around that.
If it's only 3 people that can meet, like, because to me, committees don't work if everybody always has to be at a committee meeting. The committee
Facts,
works.
yeah.
Right.
I agree.
A committee can meet and bring information to the bigger board.
I agree.
That's the limit, obviously. I don't know. And I don't know if we have enough people to fill up a lot of committees, so.
No, we don't. And I don't think that if you have an interest in multiple
Oh, yeah.
committees, you could do that. But as long as it doesn't go beyond whatever number we set.
Do I count towards the quorum or the other student members, or no, because we're not?
Ooh, that's a great question.
So
So
that's also solves a little bit.
that does solve a lot of the problem. We need more students.
And every,
It's a limited number of committees. A fairly simple solution is saying each committee will have 3 people on it.
Mm-hmm.
If we want that committee to be able to meet within the parameters of the law. And that still gives us all the options to potentially be on 2 committees. If you look at the numbers of people here and the numbers of committees that you have. And we can't all be on all committees.
Right.
It's just, we're small, the groups are small.
No, yeah, thank you for saying it. I agree that, we don't, I mean, like Tracy said earlier, like we don't need more than 3 because like it could get really rambunctious. We're already a rambunctious group as we are, so maybe having a smaller subset would be good. I am okay with 3 people per committee if everyone else is on board with that.
As a maximum?
Well, not counting student members. It could be 4 or 5.
Yeah, and I've got big problems with that. Who would pick the 3 people? We've got 4 people interested in safety and security alone.
Well, then names on a hat.
Well, I mean, I think that everyone could self-elect if there are. I mean, I don't know, you're right. How do?
Listen, yeah, it's been a year and a half on this board, and we're only just now getting to defining the committees we might see. We have 6 months left. Frank, at this point, I'm asking, are we even going to be on these committees ourselves? Okay, if we throw our name in a hat for 5 of these committees, all 10 voting members of us, but only 8 are here today. I'm being very pessimistic about this.
8 out of 10 is actually a lot of people.
Sure, but then we have like 5 committees and I'm not seeing a lot of responses on the sheet we have, right? Only 1 person marked themselves interested in innovation. So frankly, why are we still talking about it?
Maybe that shouldn't be a committee. So one person's interested.
I mean, community engagement wasn't even on the initial form.
Okay.
I like the idea of community engagement, but I don't feel particularly engaged as a board member. So when we talk about, oh, we're rambunctious, we should limit 3 people to a committee, I'm getting some dissonance.
The reason for the limitation is not that because of the interest, it's really just trying to avoid having to make it a public meeting.
I'm fine with it being a public meeting. If I was on the transit funding committee, I would want to enable public comment on transit funding.
Okay.
Yeah, I do feel a bit, I agree with Brian, I do feel a little bit hesitant about like trying to skirt the Open Meetings Act. I get that sometimes it can be harder, like, we're all having this discussion here as a big group. I get that it can be harder to have discussions with a big group, but like, I do think that like as much of the work of this board as possible should be done in like public meetings.
Just want to offer another perspective. I don't necessarily see the discussion of open meetings being to avoid the public, but there is a lot of notice.
Protocol notice.
And some engagement
it's a lot.
plans. And so to your point, Dr. McCray, about only having a limited amount of time on this board, you have to consider the planning, the posting, all of the things that can kind of slow down the frequency of a committee meeting. So just want to, offer that as expected, not for or against. But if the board wants more flexibility or the committees want more flexibility to meet frequently, get more accomplished, you may want to consider getting under that threshold to get beyond the having to post
100%.
an agenda 48 hours before a meeting. If a couple change has to happen, that has to happen 48 hours before. There's just a lot that goes into open meetings. So it's not the component of not wanting the public to be engaged. Absolutely. But, factoring in the time and the planning that goes into making a meeting public, that pulls time away from, being able to get things accomplished.
Yeah.
Just offering that perspective there.
And would those meetings have to be here? They would have to be here.
The public meeting, yes.
If I could
Public meeting.
Because the public meetings also have to be broadcast, and like right now, we're on YouTube.
Yeah, so, yeah.
So every time the committee, they have to be broadcast, and just to echo what April said, there's a yearly posting of all the meetings that has to be put out. There's a 30-day notice that has to be put out. If something changes, it's a 10-day notice. It does create there's a bit of work.
And being on the back end, like working with Georgia on the back end of these meetings it's a headache. And I'm not saying that because it's headaches. Yeah, and to April's point, it's not about trying to avoid the public at all. It's just so much that goes into it, and we're already challenged with the meetings that we have on the books. And so doing that for each of these 5 committees,
Well,
that'd be crazy.
If I were an attorney to do so. The Open Meetings Act quorum requirements, restrictions also apply to the subcommittees. So let's say it's subcommittee, that's how these are referred to in the bylaws. Say you have a subcommittee of 5. Your quorum is going to be 3, majority, and so you could only have two folks meeting to discuss the business of the subcommittee without invoking the OA requirements. Let's say you have a subcommittee of three people. There is no, your quorum's two, no one can talk about it. So I mean, the subcommittees are by their definition anticipated to be public whenever you have a majority of the quorum of that group meeting to discuss the business of the subject. So that's just the nature of what we do.
So I just want to make sure I say that back to make sure I'm clear about. So if we have a subcommittee of three and the quorum would be two,
Right.
would still be required if we met the quorum. So that have
It's an
a,
open
it
meeting.
would be
It's a public meeting under Illinois choice.
wow.
You voted at your September meeting to have 6 meetings a year. So maybe you qualify those 6 meetings, you qualify every other month, I'm sorry. We're right, which is 6 meetings. Maybe every meeting is not a presentation meeting from staff with questions. Maybe you start alternating. So your January meeting is another committee goals and agenda meeting. And then your March meeting may be something that is relevant as it relates to what the committees have already discussed, what's also happening within the board and within the life of CTA and something pressing that staff wants to present. So that there is some balance. And then if you need to interweave something, another committee session in between that, because at this point, what you voted was January, March, May, whatever. I mean, with that cadence. So just add that into your mental kind of conversation as you think through how to manage getting the work of the committees done. I think also maybe a good place to start regarding the numbers on the committee is to also assess interest. And not just presuppose that everybody is on every committee.
Right.
Because everybody may not want to be on every committee. You may not have the problem or the challenge that you think you have if you just started raising hands to see who wanted to serve where.
All right. So now we have some new information about committees and now they would be part of the Open Meetings Act anyway. And we have we have the cadence of every other month. So does that mean then we should consider having committee meetings on those the opposite month or the month in between? Maybe, if we have January, we have our regular board meeting and then February is all of the committee meetings. And with that also, is it possible to host all the committee meetings in one day to reduce the amount of challenges that would go into setting those meetings?
Case in point with the board, we start with a 9 a.m. strategic planning committee and a 9:30 finance audit budget committee meeting, and then we have the regular board meeting. So the board meets, their committees meet
Multiple times in one day.
Correct.
Okay.
That's works.
So that could be a solution, is stacking the committee meetings
around your CAB meeting.
and so we have CAB, January, February, then it's committees. Or we could stack it in the same day as a CAB meeting, but that's a lot. That's a long.
You could do a half-hour transit funding meeting in January and do your regular CAB meeting, or a ridership committee meeting.
Yeah,
transit
so
funding committee meeting, and then your CAB meeting.
we could do that. We could do, whichever, we don't really know which committee is gonna probably be most pressing or whatever at that point. But and please throw out suggestions because we're just like throwing stuff at the wall right now. But Yes, please.
Could I offer maybe just taking a step back in light of, trying to, I'm gonna say jump through hoops, but there's probably a better way to phrase it. In light of this information and the fact that, part of the reason we are here is that we represent varying constituencies across the city. Instead of committees, it could just be a matter of agenda item, right? And instead of, we have a public safety, we talked public safety and we had the vice president of safety and security come and they gave like an informational presentation and then we asked questions and that was the public safety one. We can have a public safety meeting and we don't need informational component. It's us discussing the concerns of our various constituencies. And the end product of that meeting is a set of recommendations and feedback and concern that we then report to the board the next meeting. And we say at the February 5th meeting, the board met and the focus of the meeting was public safety. What we think is advisable for the board to take on from this meeting is ABC, XYZ, and then the next month it's transit funding, right? I think what it would take is, what I'm getting at is scrapping committees, quite frankly. It would take advanced planning and advanced discussion from us to come in and talk about it. And if you're not interested, maybe you're quiet at that meeting. But I think that is perhaps a more efficient way to not jump through, not have to, because I've done this at city council, trying to stack committee meetings on top of a city council meeting. And Georgette, you've got firsthand experience with it. It gets
crazy.
It gets crazy. And that's with people that are getting paid to do it, right? We're all volunteering our time during the weekday. And, I think part of that is it also lends us flexibility in developing an agenda that, like, let's say innovation is, we're planning to discuss innovation, but it turns out we decide the meeting before that, like, maybe there's not a lot going on with innovation that we feel that we have to advise the board on. Let's circle back around on public safety, because that February meeting on public safety, it was hot and it was long. And it merits revisiting that item again. Effectively, all we're really doing is switching from the first year where it was all informational. Okay, we've got the primers now. Now we are, instead of taking in, instead of input, we are output.
Yeah.
That's, I don't know, putting it out there.
I agree.
I love that.
Yep.
I think that's, I think,
The workable solution and takes into consideration individual passions.
I do.
And it allows for us all to participate. It's not stopping, it's not limiting, it's allowing us all to be present.
Well, I was gonna say, I do think before each of those meetings, we should have like a very clear set of discussion points, and we each.
Absolutely. And I think that
is reflected in the agenda. Like, we're gonna spend time talking about this. This is something that 3 people put down. Let's talk about that. Let's get more time on that.
Yeah.
So.
100%. I think this is a really good direction to go in.
And timing wise, perhaps we do that to some extent before, from one meeting to another meeting, so there's plenty of time to do our own individual homework, should it be our own individual passion, our own individual input from our own communities, as opposed to just a simple, I think, discussion.
Agreed. I think also if we can get the minutes faster too, after, like, as soon as possible after the meetings, so that we can have more time to digest, especially as we get into these deeper conversations, to, keep it fresh on our mind as
We can, but also the YouTubes are posted as soon as the meetings end.
I can never find these. I don't know if I'm looking in the wrong place. Oh, I know you know. I know. I've never been able to find the CAB meeting.
CTA Connections, and then when you go to the YouTube channel, CTA Connections, just click on meetings. And all of the meetings for all of the.
See, the
boards,
regular
advisories.
board meeting, I've never seen the CAB one.
They're there.
Okay, you did, okay. All right, that's just me. Just a board daycare.
I'll be happy to teach you how to.
Yes.
Wow, thank you.
I would also say, piggybacking off of, everybody that was talking, I would say that we want to have our meetings like very, very concise. Normally what we had presentations, okay, we got these packets of whatever they presented and then we go home. So like I said, what are we actually doing with our time? So Rob, I do agree with you on, making that time more efficient and actually using that, okay, this is exactly what we're gonna do, but let's focus on that because half the time we're okay, they're presenting, okay, we tell them, okay, this is what we like, thank you for presenting, thank you for your time, and then we go home. What is that actually doing for the Chicago Transit Authority and then us? And then how are we going to be collective and do that? Because as our chairwoman has said that we have a diverse body for the CAB, that we have different aspects of stuff that we want and stuff that we all care about and love. So again, that ties into innovation, collaboration. Here's this what you like, this is what we like, how we're going to put this together in ABC and make it happen, so. I do believe in that. So thank you again, Rod. It was a very great statement.
So thank you, Peter, because we have, I'm just thinking about the timeline that we have left. We're done in July, I think. Is at the top of July or the end of July? We'll table that and come back to it, but basically we have.
Our first meeting was end of June.
Yeah, it was Jones.
So then we might be done in. So if we're looking at every other month, that's January, March, May. And I'm guessing we would do something just because it's the end if we did it in June. My thinking is that we would want to make sure that whatever topics we're focusing on, that we're able to have like a culminating, like, this is our package, this is what we're presenting to the next board that's coming in, take it, keep building on this thing. Like, I would imagine that we would want to kind of like close it out with something that the next group can run with. I just wanted to put that out there, just kind of like keeping the timeline in mind. Also, to the point about adding community engagement, I feel like we can add that as a conversation. But I feel like that's more of like a do than a conversation. Like, because we're not, it seems that CTA is kind of like doing a lot in terms of community engagement, but what else would we offer? Like, my whole thinking around community engagement was like, how can we tap into it? But do we also want to leave space to offer suggestions for community engagement? I just want to know from you.
I was thinking, like, for instance, Billiken, Peter and I attended and we gave out fans and people were asking for venture cards. And I just feel like maybe a suggestion for next year would be like giving out, $5 venture cards to people, and that can encourage ridership. So just, being in tune on what are the existing events and then how can CTA be a stronger presence at those events. That's why I suggested maybe we can have like a working group to, help facilitate. And then telling them what events are popping off that they may not be aware of.
Maybe we can combine that with innovation.
I was gonna say, like, it would be a set conversation, like maybe safety and security probably needs its own day, I would imagine, for sure, because that's a very big topic for all of us. Service delivery, I would imagine, could also be its own. Or maybe it could be looped in with transit funding. And then maybe we can do innovation with community engagement. And then that last meeting will be where we're tying all of our loose ends up.
Right.
And we're getting ready. So, cool. Do we also want to consider, and we don't have to, I just had the thought, inviting the staff leaders of each of these areas to sit in on our conversation and be there to answer any questions, not necessarily to give us any, like, when they're not there to present, they're not there to like tell us what to think, but they're just kind of like in the room with us during their specific subject matter. Is that something that,
Sorry, what are we talking about right now? Just like we're planning our last meeting?
no, I'm talking about each of the areas that we have determined that we want to have meetings on. So we're shifting from doing the committees to doing like each of our next meeting. We have about 4 meetings starting in January. So each meeting will have its own theme or own like agenda focused on these areas. What I'm asking is, would we want to consider inviting the CTA staff that work in these particular areas to those meetings? Not
Yeah,
to contribute, but just to listen in and.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't think we actually scrapped committees as a idea so quickly. Can we have a more thorough discussion on that? Because that came out of nowhere. This has been a priority for ours of 6 months now, is when we had this form come out. Frankly, our current cadence is every other month for 2 hours. When I applied to be on this board, I was hoping for more than a 1 hour a month commitment. I feel like at least 2 hours a month would be great.
Or, okay, what are you talking?
As a whole, I think every other month we have the general, and then every other month in between we can do committees. Whether we do one day where each committee meets, so maybe people who are on multiple committees can save themselves a trip. But yeah, I think the idea that it's currently too much workload to do 1 hour a month or 2 hours every other month.
I think we can discuss it. I also want to just be mindful that, you know, a lot of us have a lot of commitments, families, a lot of stuff, other things going on.
If you're too busy for the board, that's beyond the scope of the board.
But I'm just.
It's good for everybody to give their own opinions, and let's not try to characterize what other people are saying, and let's just take what they're saying at face value. What is the group's, just by show of hands, consensus, who is more comfortable with the committee structure, with the committee meeting 1 month and a full meeting the following month? Show of hands.
Can I, before, I just want to make a case, and if I guess it's a question, I just want to make sure I'm making an assumption, want to make it clear. If we were to go, CAB committee, CAB committee, CAB committee, my understanding of, how you are supposed to report through board structures is that month you have a committee meeting, you cannot report that to the board. Committees are supposed to report to the board, and then the board is supposed to report out.
Absolutely.
So effectively, by going at staggered every other month, there's still that lag in what's actually being able to be recommended to the full CTA board. Is that correct?
That's accurate.
Versus,
Committee has to come back to CAB.
sure, versus
Yeah.
versus if, let's say we were to meet monthly every 2 hours and it's just a CAB board meeting, you have the opportunity to report what happens in those board meetings directly to the board after each meeting, at the following full CTA board meeting. Is that,
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on how it's structured or scheduled, if we.
yeah, schedules,
Yeah.
sorry, yes, correct.
No, but you make a valid point, but we would have to figure out how we would structure it, so there would be a committee meeting preceding a board.
Right.
So that the committee could report into the board would
Yeah.
then report everything into or the CTA board quarterly.
Right.
So yeah, I'm speaking just to ideas.
Sure,
So,
yeah.
I'll go through a show of hands, who's in favor of the structure of a committee meeting preceding a board? And that could be in the form of the month, 1 month is a committee. The following month is a full board meeting. Or it could be in the same month, which, Georgette, I'm sorry, but I'm just kind of, talking it through. But if it is, your meeting in January is a full board, so a week prior, 2 weeks prior, there is a committee meeting that precedes that board. Who's in favor of that? A committee meeting preceding a board meeting?
This seems like a weirdly specific thing, but yeah, sure.
Just giving out concepts, Mr. So you don't have to agree. I'm just trying to go through what I'm hearing as the ideas, okay? I also heard the idea or the concept of scrapping the committee, having really a committee of the whole, where the CAB is addressing topic specific meetings, where there will be a segment of, this is the feedback we're getting from community. But then there's another segment of that meeting that focuses on what are we advising the board on? What are the ideas? So that meeting would be longer. But it's very specific in terms of its objectives. Topic, the community engagement or input piece, and then the advisory piece. Who's in favor of that format?
Like that.
Okay, is there another format that I missed in this discussion? Mr. McCray, did I miss your concept at all?
No, but I'm still no less surprised at the scrapping of committee. It feels like we've been talking about this since we started, frankly.
But I think part of this working session is really to kind of talk through what will be best for this body to operate. So I understand that, yes, this is a concept that has been discussed. A survey was sent out earlier this year because we thought that might be the best way to get to this. But, part of the working session is to talk through it and figure out, will this work? What works best for the group? What do we think we can get achieved in, less amount of time? I've heard feedback from you that we're working on limited time. We didn't know that. Maybe we thought the committees would kick off sooner in the year. They haven't. So you have to, factor all of that in, figure out what's best. How are we going to get the most work done? I think those are all things we need to take into consideration. So it's not a matter of scrapping it and being flippant about it, but I've heard a lot about time. Now, I would say, let's not be so constricted by time. And I'll just leave it at that. Let's focus on what you want to achieve as a citizen advisory board as we talk about time. But, it is a factor. And so you're looking at the calendar ahead. What do you want to achieve within that calendar? And what's the best way that we can? So I'd like to get the focus back on that and not so much being, I don't want any characterizations of the ideas that are being thrown out here. I think everyone is trying to figure out what is the best use of time for this body and how can we get the most done.
Thank you.
I agree. So can we do a show of hands of who agrees that the most impactful thing we do as a citizens advisory board is the report to the board?
Does the chair need to make that?
Yeah, I'm trying to understand, what are you asking?
I'm just asking for y'all's opinion, having a conversation.
So ask your.
I'm not doing a motion or anything. I'm just is that not what we've talked about today? That the most impactful thing we do as a board is our report to the board of directors.
I don't know if we said that.
I would ask y'all then what you think the most impactful thing we do is or should be. Like maybe this goes back to our mission statement. What is the most impactful thing we do or that we should be doing?
I think you have to add something to that. The most impactful thing that we should be doing is representing citizens and constituents and bringing ideas to the board. Not just to the board, but the ideas that the things that are occurring in our communities and the concerns that our communities have, that we're able to relay information to the board in a way that is it's actionable and there's something that can be done, to help improve, create a better transit authority in our city. I think I agree with you, the premise of what you're saying, but I think it more needs to be added to kind of what our purpose should be.
Is anyone else thinking anything differently? I fully agree.
No, I think there's consensus on that. I think it's been stated
Yeah. So
constantly
then,
throughout the meeting.
so for the last year and a half, do we feel that impact has been made? Are we happy with the reports we've been making to the board of directors? Because frankly, when we say scrapping committee, that sounds like we are expanding the current model, and I don't think the current model has worked.
Take a step back.
I don't think that we're scrapping the committees. I think we're scrapping how we operate as the committees. We changed the committees to topics. And we're going to use those topics every other month, develop input that then we can provide to the board. Those topics are in fact what the committees are, sort of what the committees are. But then allows us individually from our own worlds, our own concepts, our own backgrounds, our own research, whatever we feel is important about that topic, be able to bring to that day. Let's say, example, let's say the day is innovation. And our innovation discussion, we bring from our own community thoughts and ideas that are innovative, some of which are worthless, some of which are not worthless. We may have done our own individual research on innovation of what's going on in other communities. We bring that upon ourselves. It's our objective to do our own homework in that particular area. In the same token, if that area has a relatively little input, interest by us, we're not going to provide any input in that particular area as an individual.
Yeah.
So I think that we're not taking away the opportunity to have these conversations and develop some structure around these topic areas to present to the board. We're just doing it differently. Instead of breaking it out into these smaller groups that presented another level of challenges for us, we're doing it together as a larger group. And we're splitting it across the time that we have left as this group. So it's not, I would like for you to try to think about it as not taking away the opportunity, still get into this stuff and have these conversations. It's not that. It's just structured in a way that will help us to make sure we can all get to those points in a shorter span of time.
Okay. Help me envision this a little, right? We're having meetings every other month. And we want each of these meetings to only have one of these 5 topics.
Not necessarily.
Necessarily. It depends, like and this was said earlier in this conversation, that we might find, and Rob mentioned this, and it was a really great point, that safety and security might require us to have more time. Like we might get through a really robust conversation around safety and security on the first meeting and find that we needed more time. And so we might have, that might spill over into our second meeting. It might be that we want to invite the leadership from safety and security to have that conversation with us, whatever we decide. It can look however we want it to be. So it's not that we are trying to limit ourselves. We're just trying to pace it so that we can try to capture this. We only have till July, we have June. So unfortunately, to your earlier point about what we have been doing over the last year and a half, we were, I think, Scott or somebody else at this table said that we were in a learning stage. I think it was Peter or Rob. Okay, sorry, I'm calling everybody's name. But we are all in a learning space, just getting on board with understanding how this stuff works. So we did have to have a whole lot of briefings. It's unfortunate that that's the way it panned out. But now we're in a space of, okay, we got all the information. What are we gonna do to take action? And so instead of us worrying about the fact that we hadn't been able to take action over the last year and a half, we're in a place where we can. So we're gonna do what we can in this time that we have. And we're gonna do it the best way and most efficient way that we can.
I'll just to kind of elaborate on, since I floated the concept. I'm kind of just working through this through the agenda, quite frankly. So in my mind, I'm at item 4, like committee structure. How can we make that most impactful? In all fairness to you, to your point, item 5, like the adoption of the 2025 meeting schedule, I'm probably more aligned with you. We probably should be, in my opinion, but it's up to the CAB. We probably should maybe be meeting monthly. We've got 6, let's say June is the last meeting, I don't know, something. I think we should be. I personally, I think a month-long cadence, but a month-long cadence where it's not alternating between like a committee and a full board, where it's a month-long cadence where at the end of every month, at every meeting, we have a product that we can report to the board, advisements to report to the board. That's kind of what I'm getting at. I just didn't say, I didn't touch on the cadence because I was talking structure first. So just to flesh that out for you.
And we did have conversations regarding cadence a couple of meetings ago. We decided that moving from quarterly to every other month was what we as a group felt was best because of our other commitments in life, whatever they might be. If that is something that you think should be revisited, then that's another conversation. Whether or not we actually move forward with changing the cadence again, I don't know if that would be a thing. But I don't think that we should be putting so much energy into this right here to the start of the meeting when you said we don't need to focus on one thing, we need to focus on that. I think that we need to take that idea and like shift our focus back to how we're going to conduct these meetings instead of worrying about some of these other things right now. Because we just had this conversation for 20, 30 minutes maybe, and we could have been focused on like how we're going to actually achieve some of these goals that we're setting out to do. So, Trace.
Yeah, but one of the things I think I keep hearing is like the amount of time that we have left, 6 months. Like we're not going to solve a lot of problems in 6 months.
Absolutely not.
But we are in a position to be able to help create a structure and something that can be carried on into the future. Whether we are asked to come back or some new people come, I think it would be a great service to this board and to the city and to CTA if there is a structure, obviously that some of you guys feel that we didn't have coming in. And we spent some time on like creating the structure. Maybe it's not perfect, but at least people.
It's something they can start with, yeah.
When the committees meet in the future. So I'm really big about structure and systems because in the end, that's really the only thing that's going to guide us in a more efficient manner, I think. So.
100%.
Yeah.
And I just want to reiterate that piece that in 6 months, we will not solve any of CTA's problems. CTA has to do that, but we're going to do our best to be advisors to this space in the best way that we possibly can. And we will never do it perfectly. Nobody should ever think that they can. We just gonna do what we have within our power. So I think with that said, we can kind of like let this conversation go. And we've got 10 minutes left in our time together. So let's try to just make sure that we are solid on what we're doing next, what our next steps are. So in January, if we're setting this up where we're going, I guess taking it back just to make sure that we are clear about what the direction is, we should do a vote on the not moving forward with committees. Or whether yes or no to committees. And then from that, whether we should move to this idea of having a topic or subject matter meeting for the next 4 meetings.
So in the bylaws, it says you can create a committee as the chair, or that the committees can be formed by a motion and then a motion passing, being made by a member of CAB. You don't necessarily have to vote to not have them.
Okay.
So either one. So if someone feels strongly that they want to have any one of the 4 committees listed or 5 committees listed, or 3 of them or 2 of them, that would be a motion made, or you as the chair could designate them and then ask specific members of the committee to serve on it.
Mhm.
That's basically what the bylaws call for.
Okay, and that's fair. And I think that if there is a motion to, I'm not gonna make the motion, but if anyone else on the board would like to make a motion for any of these committees, then that's open to do so. And then we can go from there.
Just is it a point of order? I apologize.
No.
I forget the right.
No, yeah, you're right.
Do
No.
we need to make the motion for a committee? I thought we've already made the committees in prior meetings. We didn't formally make.
We
them?
didn't, it was just a discussion.
Okay, okay. Oof,
Oh.
Okay.
Okay. I'm always like trying to remember the Robert's rules too.
Yeah,
But,
It was a discussion, and then it was which committees, and then it was the survey, and then it was.
no vote, we never voted.
okay, thank you. Okay.
Legally, it was the chairman's ability to appoint committees.
I'm sorry, sir. Would you better speak up or?
Committee, formal action is required.
Okay. Okay, so we could put a pin in this for the next meeting. But I kind of want to close this off today, honestly, because we need to determine how our January meeting is going to be structured.
If you're going to continue to operate as the board at each of the meetings, you don't need to vote on not having. a committee.
Right. Got it. Okay, but there can be a motion to vote for committees or these specific committees. Yes.
One more time.
I'm sorry.
So a board member can make a motion
Correct.
to have to vote for
Okay.
committees.
Definition of what I'm-
Formation.
Okay, okay, got it. So I don't want to take that opportunity away. So if anyone wants to make a motion towards forming one or more committees.
I just need a point of clarification, like,
Sure.
literally, like, we're not saying that we're not gonna deal with these subjects, safety.
Not at all.
service, and-
That's not what we're saying at all.
Is there a problem still calling them a committee, the service, even though we all will participate in it, is there still a problem
Oh, there's no problem. And
with that?
and everybody on the board can be on every committee.
Every committee. So
Okay, and that does kind of like take away some of that. So thank you for that clarification. And now with that new knowledge that we can refer to these subject matters as committees, if there's still a desire to make a motion to vote to create committees, then I'd like to.
I think what board member Tracy Powell was inferring was that if you have the power to create a committee as the chair,
Mhm.
and you can create a committee of all these committees and put everybody on
I could
the
just
committee, you can just,
do it. Oh, thank you.
you're welcome.
I wasn't picking up what you were putting down. So, okay, now that kind of like just opens the door for all of it then, I guess. So, I,
Do need it to vote on our dates for next year
okay,
because we have to publish them.
got it. So can we do a quick vote on these committees?
You don't need to.
You don't need to do it.
Oh, because I'm just gonna put it in play there. See, I'm still stuff to learn here. And then for the dates, though, we do need to vote on the dates. So then with that, since we would be doing these committees, would we still be moving forward with our current, like every other month? Or are we trying to do more meetings and then doing it every month?
The last meeting, we voted for more meetings.
We did, and so we went from quarterly to every other meeting, so starting
in 25.
it would be January, March, and every other month after that. But considering that there's also concerns about like how much information we can actually cover in those times. There's also been a discussion around whether or not we should increase our cadence. So
I think we should do it monthly. That's my take.
Is this open for discussion?
it is, I would prefer a discussion. I know we run it short on
Okay.
time.
I would make the case that we should switch to monthly, both just to expand to allow for as much conversation and, the most high quality advisory opinions that we can share to the board. I think there's that benefit, but I will also make the point that some of these items are extremely time sensitive, particularly transit funding. Session starts in January. Now there's always veto and the like, but this is our shot to address an issue because the cliff is like after
Yeah.
this session. And I think we can only benefit from more opportunities to discuss something like that, in addition to the other items as well. I think that alone merits increasing the cadence to monthly.
Okay, so we have 2, 3, 4. Ryan, you want to move the cadence to monthly as well? Aiden and Rob and Trace.
Yeah, we can move the month, yeah.
I just want to say, like, I think that moving the cadence to monthly, I can appreciate where it's coming from, but we also have to be mindful that this is a volunteer board that occurs during the workday.
Absolutely.
And that, like, I already, like, every time that this board happens, I have to reschedule, like, my therapy appointments. And I have to take off of work, and it can be very involved for some people. And so I'm a little bit hesitant on the cadence to monthly for that reason.
I echo that just because,
Valid.
yeah.
Do they have to meet during the workday? Yeah, y'all can meet whatever time you want to meet.
That's crazy.
Friday night at 11 p.m.
Okay.
I make a motion that we move our meetings to monthly. And that those meetings will be at the discretion of the chair to make some of them not during the workday.
Do we have to set specific meeting?
There's a motion on the floor, so first the chair has to process this motion. And she has to ask, first of all, if there's a second. Is there?
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so now there's room for discussion on the motion.
So my initial thoughts,
Chairperson, I think you had someone who had it.
oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Would that mean, because we have to set our meeting schedule for 2025 right now. Would that mean like we would have to come up with an entirely new meeting schedule if we were to A, move to monthly, and B, allow for the scheduling of some evening meetings?
Point of clarification, you're creating your schedule for 2025 now. It will run in the newspaper in January of 2020 per state law. there is no calendar of meetings.
There's no draft or anything.
No.
I think that, if I remember correctly, last year, there was like a list of like proposed meeting dates and we voted on that.
Correct.
As of right now, there's no draft whatsoever.
Correct.
Okay.
What you have been doing, I think, is like the first Friday of every month or so. I mean, there were Friday meetings and the request was that they would be at 11 a.m.
Perhaps to simplify, if I may offer a suggestion, the legal obligation is to post by the beginning of the year or your prior meetings, quarterly meetings. Set those today. It doesn't foreclose you from then scheduling special meetings in between those. You can do those monthly. There's still notice such requirements. And you could set those as special meetings outside the, well, you're trying to.
That is great information. I think that's helpful because that way we're not beholden to those dates right now. And so if we can set the dates that are required by law, and then in our January meeting, maybe we would have a better understanding of what our 2025 outlook is like. And we can
Fill in the gap.
fill in those gaps. Yeah. Does that sound reasonable?
General Counsel Ray. The notice requirement for these special meetings is what? Is it 30 or 10?
Sorry, sir, could you go to, go to the next?
10 days, I'd have to look it up.
I know it's 10 days to change, but is it 10 days to schedule? I think it's 30 to schedule.
I don't believe so, but I'll confirm it under the OMA,
Okay.
let you know.
Well, I mean, we would still have a little wiggle room, I'd assume, if we set the stage during our January meeting. Perhaps, maybe not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Meeting next month and you're setting next month as one of your regular quarterly meetings, you'd have the opportunity, you'd have more than enough time to set.
Set
February.
other special meeting. Okay. So I would like to propose that we do that we set the court, the legal, the meetings required by law today and then revisit the special meeting dates in January.
Motion so modified. Second.
Okay. Great. So, Georgette, for our quarterly meetings,
5 months.
I'm sorry,
Should it still be?
or bi-monthly. So we, I don't really like Fridays, but if the larger group wants to continue to do Fridays, I'm not opposed.
Yeah, I'm in Springfield during the months of January through May, so Monday through Thursday.
Okay, that's fair. So, if we're looking at, are we still doing like the first Friday of the first full week of the month?
I'm
Because
using,
that would put us at January 10th.
I'm quite okay with that.
Mhm.
What-
Okay, it'll be cold. That's my only issue.
Yeah, no. I am okay with January 10th.
Everybody else is good with January 10th? Okay, so that'll be our first meeting of the new year. And then the next quarterly meeting would be in March. Or would it be April?
Or do we say March?
It'd be March 14th.
We're not doing quarterly, right? Okay, right, we're not doing quarterly. Okay.
No, my head is all over the place. And the reason I said quarterly though was to the point of the legal, what legally we're supposed to do. But that's fine. So March 14. Okay.
And then May.
May 9th. I gotta go to Wisconsin for my daughter's graduation. So,
Second.
the 16th.
Vice chair.
Oh, we do have a vice chair. Like, I don't have to be. I'm stuck. So, May 9th. I don't know. I might be able to come and then just have to leave and, oh, my baby's graduating.
General Counsel Ray, are we setting meetings? We're setting meetings for the entire 2025, right? Right. So we need to,
So we're setting it out for the whole year, regardless of whether or not we are present. Okay, so July 11th, is there ever a month where there's like a vacation? I don't think so. Like you know how boards will take a sabbatical?
no,
Okay,
no, they don't get vacation.
okay, just under. So July 11th,
September 12th.
September 12th, November 14th. And then
First full week.
I'm sorry, 7th,
Yeah.
November 7th, yes. And
That's the second, that's not the second Friday.
Was it second Friday?
are we doing the first?
Thought it was first full.
Second Friday, because I did the first Friday,
Because the first Friday in January is the third.
Right.
first full week. I thought we were doing,
I thought you were just doing the second Friday of it.
that's fine, it really doesn't. Didn't know if it was, other thing. Anyway, November 14th. And then, nothing for December 2025.
Okay, so just to read those off, that's January 10th,
Mm-hmm,
March 14th,
mm-hmm,
May 9th,
mm-hmm,
July 11th,
Mhm.
September 12th,
mm-hmm.
and then November 14th. Do we have a time for those?
Are we still, I'm fine with 11 AM if that still continues to work for everyone.
I'd find it easier to do 10, but could make 11 work.
Agnostic.
I'm old, I like 11.
11, I think we'll stick with 11. I think. And then for the special meetings, we will discuss in January to see if there's a way to do that outside of the work day. Okay. Okay. We're set on our 2025 calendar. And then I think we'll need to know like what, and we can talk about this later, but what transition looks like, if any of us will be staying on, like what that process looks like all of those things. And we should probably set that on the agenda sooner than later. What else? Is that it for now?
I would request that the chair entertain a motion to accept the amended agenda.
Oh, yes. Is there a motion to accept the amended? I thought we did.
Adopt, we did not at the
Oh.
top of the meeting.
Okay, a motion to accept the amended agenda for October,
The amended agenda for today.
or for today. Yes, thank you. Sorry.
So move.
Second.
It's been moved by Rob Johnson, seconded by Tracy Powell, that the amended agenda be adopted for Friday, December 6th. We'll take a roll call vote. Peter Henderson,
Yes.
Rob Johnson,
Yes.
Chairperson Raby,
Yes.
Ryan McCray,
Yes.
Caroline Pavlovic.
Yep.
Tracy Powell,
Yes.
Daniel Stanley, Scott Vander.
Yes.
The motion passes. Business.
Do we have any new business?
We have no new business.
Okay, excellent. Well, not excellent, but. Okay, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
A motion.
It's been moved by Peter Henderson, seconded by Danielle Stanley, that the meeting be adjourned. We'll take a roll call vote. Scott Vanderwill,
Yes.
Danielle Stanley, Tracy Powell.
Yes.
Caroline Pavlovic, Ryan McCray,
Yes.
Chairperson Raby,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Johnson, Peter Henderson.
Yes.
Chairperson Raby, the motion passes.
We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. And have a wonderful and safe holiday season and New Year and all that jazz. We'll probably be right back.